5. Live Burial. What do we think? What do we know about this?
This is Live Burial, Unending Futility.
Live Burial.
This is a death/thrash/proto-death, and I'm going to say thrash progressive death band from Newcastle, England.
That's a different place for death metal these days.
I don't hear about stuff coming from Newcastle.
I'm not judging, but that's a different place for death. That's a very different place for death metal.
I mean, there's always, one or two death metal bands out of England.
Sure. It's not known for it, but they have like notable death metal bands. They're more of the grindcore thing, but they have some notable, the old bolt thrower. They were like, it's a different thing though. They weren't part of like the scenes, the pivotal scenes, like the Sweden and the Florida.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we just didn't hear about their lesser bands.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff.
It's just the ones that punched through. And only one or two punched through.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you only had a couple of them.
Moving on to their album. This is their second album. Let's bring it up.
Dun, 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 dun. That is not a very death metal album cover.
Unending Futility. I wouldn't peg it as death metal just looking at the cover.
Death metal albums, they like gore. Gore is like a theme. This is not.
Well, we'll talk about that. But this is their second album on Transcending Obscurity Records. All right. As I mentioned, they're death metal plus this kind of death metal plus thrash. So obviously they're not going to be too in the true area over here where they're true to one genre. They're obviously blending a few styles. I would liken it to swinging between proto-death kind of Slayer or Possessed worship to more proggy Death or Morbid Angel style.
Yeah. Slows down that Morbid Angel sound.
Yeah. And modern terms, I would call it a thrashier blood incantation.
Yeah, without the we'll get into it later. That's another category.
Without the what?
It's another category that we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay. But yeah, so they kind of, I feel like they smash these two styles together.
Yeah.
They've got that fretless bass that really just brings it home as far as the death influence.
Yeah, they're doing like
but they've got some very thrashy parts as well. Yeah. So it's interesting, especially as someone who likes both styles.
It's in that like late 80s that we're just like figuring out like Florida death metal thing.
Yeah.
It's a good era to be in. That's an interesting era of music when thrash was kind of like in its height, but meanwhile there was this other thing coming up. These people are going, thrash is not fucking brutal enough, and then you had this other scene coming up.
All right. They also have like one of those light songs on here that thrash likes to do.
Yep. The light part.
A little like Spanish ditty in there.
Yeah, they used to always, like every thrash band in the late 80s had to do that. They were like, look, we like you always get that from Testament, or even like Metallica would do it at a lot of much more simple level, but like Testament would used to do it like kind of more complicated because they like Alex Skolnick or something. But or like all those bands had to have like the light part. In the height of thrash, every like thrash band had to have the light part, and it was always expected. Like they'd have an interlude in the middle of the song to have like a light acoustic part. It's like, look, we could play. Like I don't know what it was for. It was like, look, we could play. I don't know what the reason for, but everyone did it.
I mean, sometimes if you have a really intense like thrashy album, it's nice to have a little break.
I don't like it now, but back then I thought it was, when I was a kid, when I was 12, I thought it was awesome.
You were impressed?
I thought it was fucking awesome.
See, it works.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone else thinks it's awesome now.
It adjusted the mind. It really had an effect on the mind of a 12-year-old.
Plus, you're listening to it on like a record or something. You're not going to get up and...
It was on the radio, WSOU usually.
They would play the slow...
Yeah. WSOU wouldn't like cut out the song. They wouldn't shorten the song.
Oh, they'd play the whole... Yeah. Oh, you mean a section. But I'm talking about like a song, like a dedicated song that's light.
Like a slow part? Yeah, there was some bands. A lot of bands had ballads, even like heavier bands.
We got one of those on this
Suicidal Tendency had ballads.
It's not a ballad. It's like a ditty. It's like an interlude.
Like an interlude in the song. But yeah, bands would do that.
That's a whole song.
It was the thing. They're capturing the era perfectly. Authentically, faithfully.
No, because I don't think you'd have a single band incorporating both of these styles back then.
Yeah, they're taking all, because the thrash bands, the death metal bands wouldn't really do that.
Because the thrash sounds like 86 or something, and the death metal sounds like, I don't know, 91.
Yeah.
So.
Or late 80s, for doing like the Possessed thing. It's kind of like late 80s. It's when thrash was kind of changing.
I would call Possessed thrash.
They're still thrash, but they're like, Possessed is at the last gate of thrash. They're like at the final little end of it. They're at the gateway.
All right.
They're as far as you could take thrash. Sonic Terror Register Pop. This sound stops short of like the extreme sound that So it's in that it's what I just said. It's like in that possessed area. It's just like it's just there getting into like what early death metal was.
Yeah, as far as like
But it's not mouth breather death metal. It's not caveman death metal.
It is death metal, so no one's gonna call this easy to listen to.
Yeah.
Most people would find this a little hard to approach, but
it's also complicated. It's a lot of notes.
It's many notes. But despite being so proggy, like I found this very listenable. I actually found like the proto death thrash parts were probably the most intense. Like the proggy death stuff's like almost a little melodic and pleasant for the most part.
It's a bit much for me.
It's a bit much.
Those bands are always like, I'm like, my small brain.
Death metal, you're automatically Sonic Terror, so
yeah, it's automatically there. But this is less than like Cannibal Corpse or something.
Approach only if you already have your death metal license.
Yeah, this is not caveman death metal by any means. This is not. On the death metal triangle that Samantha invented, this does not fall under caveman at all.
Oh, definitely not.
This is complex. It's kind of nerd death metal.
This is a retro band, so for their production, they've definitely got that retro style. Production is very balanced. As I mentioned, they've got a fretless bass in here. You can hear it beautifully.
Yeah, they're doing that thing. And we know where that's from. We'll get into that in a second.
And it's very old school, very echoey sound on those drums and shit.
Yeah,
it's good.
High production drum sound. I don't like that. When I do drums, I want to do them like they're recorded in a room. Like I love that basic drum sound. I want them to be heard, but I want them to sound like there's not a lot of mics on them.
I don't know.
Like when I do my fake drums, I purposely use only the room mic, the simulated room mic, so they sound like they're in a room and not like individually mic'd. It's a DIY sound. DIY. So.
It's a DIY.
I like my drums that way. Yeah, I like my drums.
Okay.
That way.
But I like this production on death metal a lot. I think production is very important for death metal.
Yeah, well, it's got it's got the.
It's kind of make or break for me anyway, and I think this goes a long way to making this album as listenable as it is.
It's got the Florida the Tampa place. What is it called?
More sound.
More sound. It's got the more sound. More
sound.
Yeah. More sound.
Anyway, good job on the production. I liked it.
Yeah, they weren't fucking around with the production. So, can't play or too many notes. There's a lot of too many notes in this. They're going with that fretless Steve DiGiorgio philosopher sound. Like they're like, oh yeah, let's capture that death under Death's best lineup. When and that when you hear like individual thought patterns or something, you hear that just like madness that's going on in the bass. And Steve DiGiorgio doesn't really do that anymore. He kind of plays as normally now with Testament. He doesn't really do that. Though, like he was kind of like he was like one of those noticeable bass players back then. It was like, whoa, what's this guy doing? And these guys are they're trying to.
Not every band wants to have the statement instrument be the bass.
Yeah, I don't like me personally, I don't like the fretless bass. It's a little too like.
I like the fretless bass.
Snobby for me. It's like
I love that snobby sound.
Look, I don't need any frets. I know the notes are. And that's not. Shout out to you guys. I'm just saying,
I mean, they usually have markings on them.
Yeah, you could kind of.
You don't.
You can get like a quarter tone.
It's more about the style.
Yeah, because you don't have an exact. You don't want the exact note.
They are harder to play.
Well, yeah, there's no borders between the notes, so it's like a trombone. It's a trombone of your hand or a violin, or a cello.
It's a trombone.
Yes, it's like a trombone. So yeah, it captures that sound. It captures that sound of Death's best lineup. For I think when they had Andy LaRock. We just discovered was a guest.
I would
musician.
Argue Human was Death's best lineup.
Okay, fine. Scream, Bloody Gore. Either way, they're all good. But yeah, Death kind of got really proggy at that point with that lineup. You got Andy LaRock on.
All right, we're talking about this album.
But yeah, the songs are a standard length, tolerable for death metal. Because you can only take so much death metal. Me anyway. Before my brain starts melting, right? But yeah, they have one song called Cemetery Fog at the end, and it's 9 minutes long. That was hurtful.
Honestly, that song's kind of a banger. I like that song.
It's cool. Like you end it. Like
it's not boring though. It's intense, but it's not boring.
You think you're done with it, and it's like, no, you got 9 more minutes. It's like, oh, am I done with detention yet? It's like, no, you got another week. See you next week. It's not over yet. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's just
They're like, the album's 30 minutes.
it's a bit much.
Maybe it should be 40.
That's a lot of the Yeah, I don't appreciate the 9-minute song.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Never mind him.
I want the short song.
But yes.
Short attention span.
Again, this is death metal, and we're even doing progressive death, and we're doing extreme thrash. So obviously, the playing skills got to be there, and it is.
Yeah, you got to be good to play this stuff, even if it doesn't sound good.
We mentioned the bass a lot, like the bass player, guitar player.
Who's the bass player? Let's just find out. What's
guitar player?
Look at this guy.
I found his solos technical, but tasteful.
Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson is good.
He's been in a number of other bands
as
well.
I don't know what these bands are, but he sounds
not
good.
Familiar. They're all the same bands together. That's nice. They're all very good friends.
Anderson sounds like a guy who's like famous, but he's not. It's just like he sounds like a
very
name.
Standard name.
Yes, it sounds like a guy who is popular. It's like, oh yeah, Lee Anderson, I know him.
All right, let's go back to the album.
Okay. So, yeah.
But yes, Maledictus over here appreciates a tasteful guitar solo.
Yeah, they had them. Well, sometimes I do. And they put him in there. They needed them.
He appreciates the guitar solo that isn't masturbatory.
Yes. So. Yeah, like I like it. Like I'm not always for a guitar solo when it's not needed. Like a lot of these bands are just kind of half-assed guitar solos. That's fine. Like Ice War guy, like he's keeping them real simple. He's just putting them like where they're needed, like literally. These guys are going to be a little more liberal with their solos.
It's death metal,
but they're not masturbating on the solos though. They're not. They're
it's
good.
Tasteful.
They're like Andy LaRocque, the way Andy LaRocque, he's not really a super guitarist. Like he's not a super guitarist. Like he plays for King Diamond, but there's nothing crazy about how he plays though. He's not. There's a fine line between like these guitarists.
I saw a documentary about that guest spot he did on Death, and it was just like he just came in and did it.
Well, yeah, he's a good guitarist. Walked
in and did it.
But there's guys that could play really well.
Winged it.
No, but there's these guys that just like play just too gallantly, though. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, this guy did a good job.
Yeah, this guy did a good job.
Keep it on topic.
Absolutely.
All right. Fun. Are these guys fun? This is death metal. Death metal can only be so fun, and it's not very fun. So we're pretty serious over here.
Well, it depends what kind of death metal. This is more serious death metal.
This is some pretty serious stuff. Lyric content. I wouldn't say. Yeah, it's kind of typical death metal stuff, but it's nothing too brutal. Again, it's hard. I'm not really.
It's not brutal.
I'm not really a lyrics person, especially on any harsh singing. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't understand what
you're talking about. So we're just going by like the album, song titles.
Comment down below what your songs
They're
are
definitely
about.
going for kind of an ominous feel. Stuff like
isn't that what every metal band does?
Swing of the pendulum, the crypt of slumbering.
Those are very death lyrics.
Madness.
Those are very death themes.
But as opposed to like Cannibal Corpse.
The Cannibal Corpse is gore.
Yes, so they're not gory.
Yeah.
They're like nice death.
Yeah,
metal.
not caveman. Yeah, not gory.
Nice death metal, and they're very serious about the music. I would say, as we said, it's technical, it's well done, serious, heavy, dark, evil, etc.
Evil. Yeah, like I said, once again, they put a 10-minute song at the end of the album, so
you got to be somewhat serious to have a 10-minute song.
It's hurt my feelings. This album takes a retro feel. Like I said, they're like they're an alternative like death metal. But they're kind of doing that. But a certain fun factor. It's they're like a special kind of like there's a lot of bands doing the death metal thing today. Right, that's the new popular thing. A lot of bands are going that route. These guys are taking it into like a certain specific genre of death, a specific era of death metal.
Well, there's two eras I feel like competing on this.
Well,
there's the proto thrash, and then there's the proggy death.
Yeah, it's the mid '90s proggy stuff. But they're keeping it like American.
Yes,
in their sound.
This does feel very American.
It's not Swedish at all.
Or
at all
British,
or whatever British is.
Taking
when we never did a show on British death metal, so I'm not that like keen on actual British death metal and what the factors are, what the criteria is. So comment down below.
It's not really a scene so much as a couple big bands.
Yeah, there's only a couple of them. That's the thing. But it is different.
But yes, I mean, old school death metal is definitely cool right now.
There's a lot of people doing it.
It's definitely on scene.
Some people are. Yeah, go ahead.
But I wouldn't put them all the way over on the hipster category. because they're kind of like the less hipster blood incantation.
Okay, yeah.
So they can't be all the way on the end. They don't sing about aliens. They're not. They don't delve into any transcendental or intellectual topics. They're just some guys. They're definitely just some guys. So
yeah, they're keeping the craziness. This is a retro death metal act. Going for the proto-death sound, that special proto-death sound. Definitely like hipster friendly, but minus the tinfoil, right? Blood incantation, there's a lot of tinfoil there, right?
tinfoil?
Tinfoil on the head. Tinfoil protecting the brain from the interdimensional child molester waves from Mars, from Phobos.
I feel like blood incantation is just very up their own ass and self-aware about it.
But he has a helmet, I think, that protects him. He's aware, the blood incantation guy, he's aware of waves coming in.
Oh, we know about the waves.
And these guys aren't worried about that. They're like,
no, they're just
like, fucking
just
whatever.
Guys.
They're British. They're fucking what from Newcastle. You may have fucking Newcastle, probably have a Scottish accent, right?
I think north of England is its own thing.
They're fucking Scottish. Maybe they talk.
Anyway.
They talk like David Coverdale, probably. And and they're probably like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Anyway, this is a cool album.
Yeah, but
Any
just
thoughts
no.
on the...
There's no.
Any thoughts on the cover art here?
Oh, cover art. Okay, so this is not a typical, like, even Death had some gore. It's like sometimes, or they had some weird stuff going on in their thing. Not as gore, not like Cannibal Corpse, but even Death had some gore. This is like, I don't think this looks very British, right? Like it's like it doesn't look at death metal. It looks like it should be just some like speed metal album of the 80s. It doesn't look death at all. Just saying, not that.
Yeah, look at how legible that
logo
is.
Pretty fairly legible compared to Blood Incantation. That's fairly legible. I mean, I could read it. So yeah, you guys aren't going which is cool. You're doing your own thing. You're not following that like theme that you're supposed to follow. So do your own thing. It's British. It's very British. It's like a king or something. Like no, this is like in Skyrim. That's a Dragor tomb, and he's like there, but the Dragor's gonna come out. Like the zombies, the zombie Vikings.
Annoying.
I hate them because they're always everywhere. They're like, nah. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
Just leave me alone.
Yeah, that's like the Dragor boss. And he's got magic. He's got ice magic.
He's got the king. He's got the crown.
He's got ice magic, and ice magic really fucked you up. It's like powerful ice magic.
Fuck this cover.
I'm gonna mention Skyrim on every fucking thing we do, because I played so